Hi, so in this video, we are going to talk about how to enable or configure outbound calls in your Amazon Connect. So outbound calls are pretty much calls that are leaving your Amazon Connect instance or calls that are leaving your Amazon Connect contact center. So the first thing you have to check is to come to telephony and ensure that you have outbound calls in Connect checked and enabled. Once you are done with that, we will quickly go through the flow the instance, and then we will check that out. So now, the first thing we are going to look at is, you see, to enable outbound call, you have to pay key attention to your routing profile and then your queues, right? So I'm quickly going to open my contact panel and then explain a couple of things to you guys. So each user in Connect, right, has something they call a routing profile, right? And then that routing profile in itself has something we call a default queue assigned to the routing profile. So if you check any user, because I logged in as an IAM user, basically what I'll be making use of is going to be the basic routing profile. If you come into any routing profile, there is this default outbound queue. What this means is anything outbound that this user does or anybody assigned to this routing profile does, it goes through this default outbound queue. So to enable your outbound calls, what you do is now you look for your default outbound queue associated with that routing profile you are working with. So in this case, the basic routing profile, and then you go in there to configure your outbound call experience. So for my basic queue, now when I come in here, you see there is no outbound default caller name displayed, there is no ID selected, there is nothing outbound is configured. So if I try to make an outbound call using my agent CCP, I would get an error, right? So let me try and then show you guys this. Say I want to call a number, so just some random numbers. So this is just some random numbers that I'm putting in. You see, look at the error. Before you can place an outbound call, you must associate a phone number with your queue, right? So what this means is that for you to be able to place outbound calls now in your queue, in this case, I'll have to associate a number. So what this means is if any call is leaving my Amazon Connect instance from this routing profile, which points to this queue, then this is going to be the number they are going to call with. And then if I want to display any name, right, I can have this as test. Or let me do check with Covenant. So, but now there are certain carriers that kind of does this, prevents some of the names from showing. So, in certain places, you're able to see the names, in others, it doesn't reflect. That's one of the behaviors that you see. But this is the number, and then there is something we call an outbound caller flow, right? So, that is a very simple flow. Depending on your use case, you can customize it however you want it. This is its default outbound. So it's a pretty much a whisper flow, right? It's an outbound whisper. So once the call comes in, this is the current message that gets played. This call is not being recorded. So when I initiate an outbound call, it will call with the number, point to this flow, and then when the caller answers, the caller will get this message. So this is how simple you enable outbound calls in your Amazon Connect. So now if I save this, and now I'm going to place a test call with an actual number, with a Google Voice that I have, and then we will see how it works. So now I'm going to place a test call. So as you can see, now the call is going through.
Name after the tone, and Google Voice will try to connect you.
now. So the call is coming in at my end. So this is how simple you can enable outbound calls on your Amazon Connect account or instance.